This is the Flabbergasted Podcast, where we just can't believe you haven't seen it.
Every episode, we discuss a movie that one of us has seen and the other hasn't.
And sometimes that neither of us have seen.
Follow us on Instagram
At Flabberpod.
and subscribe in your podcast app of choice. I'm your host, Jessica.
I'm your host, Rogi. Let's get to it.
We're talking about Arrival. Linguist Louise Banks leads a team of investigators when gigantic spaceships touch down around the world. As nations teeter on the verge of global war, Banks and her crew must find a way to communicate with the extraterrestrial visitors. This is a 2016 movie starring Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, Forrest Whitaker, director Denis Villeneuve. I watched him pronounce it, and he doesn't have the extra sound.
Villeneuve? Yeah, Villeneuve. You're right.
Villeneuve.
It's Villeneuve.
Yeah. Also, he did Dune, Dune 2, Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, and Prisoners, which has Hugh Jackman in it, in case you were wondering. This movie is PG-13, and it has a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes. Okay, so...
I'm Rogi.
Rogi, had you ever heard of this movie?
Yes, I'd heard of it. I am a big fan of the Denis Villeneuve Dune movies. And some of the movie people that I listen to, their opinions and stuff are always talking about his, how beautifully he shoots things. And he's one of our auteur, current running,
directors.
One of our guys. So I had heard of it, and it's a movie that I know some people think didn't get the critical acclaim that it should have at the time.
At this point, Dune has already... In 2016, Dune had not been released yet.
No. The first Dune was like 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, now that we say that, I can see similarities in the sort of artistic decisions that were made between Arrival and Dune.
He loves a big sweeping landscape, like a wide lens type of thing. I've not done Blade Runner. I've not done Sicario. I'd be interested in. That
is a movie not a huge fan of.
Really? Some people love Sicario.
Yeah. If I'm correct, that's the one with Emily Blunt, and there's the guy whose name is escaping me right now.
Yeah, I don't know. And they're like fighting a Mexican drug cartel or something.
And Sicarios are kind of like their enforcer / assassin type.
A Green Beret sort of thing. I don't know.
People. I don't know. Maybe if I watched it again, maybe it just didn't hit me right. Maybe I should give it another try. But yeah, let's see. So you'd heard about this movie because of the director, but you hadn't seen it.
Correct. I got it confused with the Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence movie Passengers.
Okay.
I think, and Interstellar.
Okay.
All three of those must have come out in like a 4-year window or something. I was like, it's just one of those. The space movies. I don't know.
But you hadn't seen Interstellar either.
I've not seen any of those 3 movies.
Okay.
Except now, as of today, I've seen Arrival.
What did you think?
I thought it was good. It was almost like a really long first episode of a TV show about some sort of alien connection that was going to go on to something.
Mm-hmm.
And so afterwards, I was like, okay. I guess this isn't exactly about what I thought it was going to be about. Like the theme, my interpretation of the theme changed.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's over now. And they want me, I think, to wrestle with the time.
Non-linearness.
Lack of clarity. Yeah. Timey-wimey is the phrase that I have in my notes. They want me to wrestle with that and figure out at what point was she able to see the future, and then she sees the future and that impacts her decisions in the present, which is insane. I mean, that's, there's all kinds of ways to handle time travel in movies, and that's certainly one of them.
Okay, so when it opens up, I've seen this at least 3 times, and every time I think I catch something that I didn't catch before, like as far as the just not necessarily Easter eggs, but as far as the cohesiveness of the story every time. But the first thing I wrote this time watching it is it's very up in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where it opens and you see this relationship that she has where she falls in love with this person They have a baby. The baby.
Well, you don't see the person. You see the baby.
You just see that but it's implied that there's a relationship, right? Because I thought that was part of it.
At the time, I wasn't 100% sure if maybe it was an artificial insemination thing.
Okay, so maybe you don't see that there's a relationship. Okay. But you see her go through the stages of growth with this child, and then the child dies of something, which is very clear, all in like the first 5 minutes. So I did write down that's very like up.
Do you think that the movie was conceived on that premise? Like, what if we did the tragic backstory first 5 minutes, and then we launch into the movie, and everyone thinks that's what it is? Oh, like Up, but it turns out that's actually the future. Like, is that the way you pitch a movie like this? That we're going to take Up, but we're going to subvert their expectations, and it turns out that what we're seeing in the beginning actually happens after the events?
I don't know. Well, it's based off of a short story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Bradbury?
The story of your life. Ted, Chiang.
Won't even try. Ted
in
C.
1998.
Okay. But it wasn't really set in 1998.
No, it wasn't really set. I mean, actually, it's not really. There's nothing super identifying about.
Yeah, just the existence of cell phones and laptops and stuff. That's about it.
I don't know how you pitch a story like that. Do you say, hey, read this short story. I would expand this into a movie.
Yeah, when you've got existing IP of any kind, that really helps. I think it makes it easier. I didn't realize it was based on something like that. It'd be interesting to read the short story and see if it has that same premise of we're going to introduce you to this and then it's going to flip.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
You've seen this movie like 3 times and you have always had it's been a big one for you. It's like a strong relationship to it.
I don't know. I think I probably saw it because I like science fiction and I like Amy Adams and Forrest Whitaker and Jeremy Renner. And so I was like, yeah, that seems like a no-brainer. Check it out. I less identify with directors of movies more now that I'm older, but less so than you do, I think. Yeah. And I was just like, that looks cool. Let's go check it out. I don't know. Just specifically, every time I watch it, something new, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, or that tracks. Or I watch it far enough apart that I've forgotten something, and so there's always like a fun little surprise. But I liked that. I sort of like how it opens up, although it's kind of slow-paced movie.
Yes,
you never know where you're at in the story.
It's not concerned with giving you timestamps because the ultimatum stuff with General Shang isn't really like, okay, you've got 1 month to make good contact. And there's some movies that would handle it that way, right? And then we'll go down day by day and, we're getting close. We need 1 more week or whatever. Yeah,
it just sort of throws you in there and you don't really get to, as you're watching it, you don't even get a good sense of how much time has passed since this event has happened to that event, even as you're watching it. So when we got to the camp, we were like, oh, that's been about 15 to 20 minutes in. We checked the timestamp. We're like, okay, so it's been about 15 to 20 minutes to get us to camp, which I thought was interesting. But let's talk about she's a language professor. You do a little bit in the language area.
I'm a language teacher, yeah.
Did you identify or think any of those things were interesting or that they did it well?
So, I mean, I cannot claim to have I'm not a linguist, like someone that studies the development and implementation of different languages and the differences between them and why, the nuances and those kinds of things. I mean, I speak Spanish, okay. I did the times that I most related to it in terms of having any sort of expertise was when Forrest Whitaker was like, okay, just ask this. And she's like, there's so many things we have to clarify here, right? Yeah. About how pronouns work and do they even know the concept of a question? And I do have to have those kinds of conversations with my students because you get a lot of, why doesn't everyone just speak English, right? You get a lot of that in the classroom and a lot of like, well, why does it, why does it have to be different? Like, why isn't there just a word for word translation? Yep. And it's hard to get them to see the big picture of there's a reason multiple languages exist, and your ability to express to a level of specificity about a certain topic might ebb and flow depending on which language that you're in, because like, why do they have 4 words for blah, blah, blah? And I'll be like, guy, dude, man, bro. Like, we have many different.
Right.
There's hundreds of examples in English that we have lots of words, kid, child.
That mean, basically
infant,
the same
baby,
thing.
like that are very similar. If I say baby versus infant, you immediately in English know the difference between those two things.
Yeah.
And then when I tell kids that there's a word for a baby and a word for a baby, or whatever, they'd be like, oh, that's dumb. Why do they two? I'm like, screw you. Like, we need 2 different words for that in English. So having to like convince them of that stuff. And it's frustrating when the government and Forrest Whitaker are like, we'll just ask this. Like, just go. Like,
they're oversimplifying
he's like, these are all preschool words.
Right. I mean, this is a completely new language that they don't know anything about.
I mean, we're using the term language pretty loosely. They call it like semi-asodic, or there's some word that I'd never heard before about it's based on the vibe of the word and not like exactly like this is a 1-for-1. It's not like a letter system or anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's clearly, I don't understand the science of how they actually figured it out. Like you'd have to have a lot of baseline examples of like, okay, what's your word for this and what's your word for this? But they're not going to have the same nouns that we would.
Right.
So she's clearly studied the concept of language and how people communicate just to have any framework for where to start with that, which is impressive.
Yeah, I like how she's explaining things because they are oversimplifying it, and she's like, yeah, that doesn't work. And then she explains it in a way he can understand, like the kangaroo story, which I think is funny. And then she's like, yeah, I just made it up, but it gets my point across. And I'm like, it really kind of does, because and I do think that Forrest Whitaker's character, even though it's annoying what he's asking for, but he's also just I think he respects what they can do. Like, he knew enough to collect a team of people that can do the job or have the best chance of doing the job, which I appreciate. And he can respect that they bring skills to the situation that he doesn't.
Yeah, he's thoughtful enough to consider that a linguist would be a person that would be helpful in this situation.
Yeah.
And I like when she realizes that the Chinese outfit is using mahjong to communicate and like teaching them their language through the framework of a game. And she's like, that's bad. Like, that's not cooperative. That's competitive. That's win, lose, or draw. Like, it's zero sum. It's cutthroat.
If everything is viewed out through that lens, then everything's a game and everything's competitive and you don't have any really common ground.
Yeah. Which is like maybe what the movie's about. I had a couple ideas of theme, one of which is man's tendency towards division, like humankind's inability or unwillingness to, because at first everyone's really working together. And then this one Chinese general just starts getting crabby about it and is like, no, we're mad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the direct incentives aren't, it's because the word weapon, they use the word weapon.
Offer weapon.
But they mean to, and she's like, that could.
She knew immediately too. She's like,
we are translating from an alien, totally different form of language, and you're taking our rough translation of the word weapon as gospel, when there's so much more nuance to it than that. It doesn't necessarily mean, they could just be sort of meaning tool or technology or something. And that seems so obvious to us, I think, as the viewers, that the government is being incredibly black and white about it. And, we got to shut down all comms. If they're talking about a weapon, we can't. It's like, we can't talk to the British and the Australians about this. Like,
historically speaking, doesn't it seem like the government is usually, maybe just in the movies that we're watching, but very black and white about those things? They don't often allow for interpretation.
I think the movies that we watch, we get a lot of on the whole, as a government or as a military,
Mhm.
you have to have black and white rules and regulations just so that progress can happen. But if you really drill down to it, it's in history we call this like the great man theory of history or framework of how to view history, right? I mean, you go from George Washington to Abraham Lincoln to, and you can tell the story of history through individual acts of or men, people, but men, is what people usually mean in those contexts. It's an oversimplification, but sometimes it takes a Yalta conference, or sometimes it takes Kennedy getting on the phone with Khrushchev directly, and it's like, I understand that our countries broadly are opposed to one another, but you and I as people can have more one-on-one nuance in a relationship to figure something out. So, the military has to decide, is it a go, is it a stop, or is it a go on dropping this bomb? But one person on an individual level can recognize that there's nuance to something, which was why I was frustrated by the CIA guy who was like, you're supposed to be a smart spycraft, or, your whole thing is intelligence, right?
The first splash he makes with his dialogue is, so you're saying they could suffocate us.
Right.
Like, that's the first thing he draws out of it, which I have to say, this is sort of a two-way street here. Like, yes, good on you for thinking about ways that they can use it against you, but also, like, maybe don't jump too far ahead in one direction. Like, keep that as an observation, and what else can you observe about it versus, okay, they can kill us. Thanks. Great.
Well, and that's where I'm almost surprised about how few resources they're throwing at this problem. Because, I mean, yes, there's a couple hundred people encamped there, and there's a team of linguists and a team of physicists or whatever it is. But we have one CIA guy. It seems like you send in 3 and say, one of you just try to go down the middle, one of you take the pessimistic, one of you take the optimistic.
Right.
So if he's saying so they could suffocate us, someone else should be like, oh, yes, but they also created the scenario that we could come in safely at all. I never had to do that.
Yeah.
So if they don't kill you the first time, that's not a trap, right? I mean, you need to have the yin and the yang of the perspectives on it, and then someone in the middle to sort of weigh those out. And Forrest Whitaker is a colonel?
I think so, yeah.
And I'm kind of like, we don't have a general on this? I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff going on. You're seeing the rioting, and they're doing curfew things, and so but I would have assumed that the president would be a little bit like there'd be more higher ups that would be more hands-on.
Yeah.
With something like this, if there's only one in the United States. There's 2 in Russia, right? Which makes sense. I think there's one in Eastern and one in Siberia.
Yeah.
Eventually. So that kind of surprised me. We also don't want to get too many cooks into the kitchen.
Right, and you don't want too many characters that you have to identify with, which would also be I would be curious about the short story, like who's in their setup, because you can read more characters than you can watch them on then they can make room for them on a movie, usually.
Probably, yeah.
Right?
Now, here's another question that I have. We haven't really talked about Jeremy Renner at all.
No.
I don't understand really what he's bringing to the table, honestly, in this from like a scientist perspective. I mean, clearly in movie-wise, he's someone to talk to Amy Adams and, realize that she's on the right track, and it's not just about science, but it's about connection and communication, and that's good. Because at very first, he's like, well, you're wrong. Science is the cornerstone of culture or whatever. And I was like, this is dumb. You don't have to be just jock science boy versus soft liberal arts lady. Like, that's, you can be intelligent in multiple fields. But then during the movie, it seems like Amy Adams is the one making all the discoveries. And then he's her assistant. He's like her number 2. So are there physics things that he and his team are doing that I'm missing?
I will say that's something that I've not really ever been clear on. I think that
But you've kind of recognized this same thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, from a movie perspective, I don't mind at all. That's great for him and great for her. but I don't know outside of him saying, because there's the whole talk about the atmosphere, and outside of him saying, well, maybe they are, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't remember exactly how it says it, but basically they're cleaning it out to prep for another 18 hours of coexistence. Like, that's why the ship has to move, because they're asking, well, why does it have to move or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because the guy's like, well, it doesn't take 18 hours to ventilate air, to run air through a ventilation system. And he's like, well, maybe it's not about our air, it's about theirs.
Right. And so that would be kind of the balance of the sciencey thing. And that's one of the first things that he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just don't hear as much from him. So I have to assume that that's more of the kind of thing that he's bringing to the table. And we just aren't seeing it as much because we're watching it through her eyes.
Yeah, it's just a matter of whose perspective we're seeing.
But he does come up with another breakthrough, because he says something like, it's time to get that bottle out you've been saving. But I don't remember what that breakthrough is, which is a shame.
Oh, that was when he realizes that they're looking at a giant field of all of the symbols.
Oh,
the time
and
symbols,
what's the negative space?
From a negative space.
Yeah.
And so their symbols equaled exactly 1/12 of the total space, and there's 12 total, and so that means that they have to put everything together.
So he's bringing something there.
Yeah, and he's running the computer, and he's helping her analyze everything.
They just
and
don't do a great job of showing us everything that he's bringing.
Yeah, I assume so. We're getting a lot of shots of dudes addicted to Fox News and Rush Limbaugh guys that are telling them that the government's out to get us.
And I will tell you, the first time I saw that movie, I knew the one guy was like, something was up with him.
Absolutely.
From the very first scene that he's watching it, or he's talking on his phone.
He's just quick to grab his gun. He's looking at her, and he's like skeptical of like
and
her
you
out
can
of the
see
box
it
thinking.
Right away.
Yes.
There's something fishy going on with this guy.
It's an odd dynamic to me that we see him on the phone with his wife who's freaking out, or the monster's going to kill daddy or whatever. Which, like, you don't know what you signed up for here, lady. I don't know what to tell you. But also, so he's like, I'm not allowed to tell you, I'm not allowed to tell you, I'm not allowed to tell you. Limited phone call, or in a phone bank. He's on like a landline. And then he can just get on his laptop and access whatever he wants on the internet.
I agree. I don't know why they were letting the outside media like be as exposed as it was to the people that were in camp.
Yeah. And clearly someone's leaking information to them, because they're constantly on the news being like, it said weapon, it said this, General Shane saying that. So like, what's Forrest Whitaker doing? Like, we gotta be rotating guys in and out of this camp if there are leaks, you know. So that guy, and it was frustrating. Were Abbott and Costello pointing at the bomb and trying to tell them right before it exploded when they came in for their last like 3-minute question?
I don't know. That's very.
Because they're tapping the glass.
I mean, I wasn't thinking that. I thought they were talking to them. I thought they were still trying to have the conversation. But you have to assume that they knew the bomb was there, because they also pushed them back and dropped them down the hole.
Right.
So that they're not getting
incinerated.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then one of them gets hurt from it.
Yeah. I was kind of bummed about that.
Dies.
I think it was Abbott. Yeah.
Abbott death process.
Yeah.
It's a sentence. How do you feel about the art style of the, like, what they look like?
So I thought it was very interesting. It is very like squiddish, because you almost think it's like ink coming out of their tentacles that they're using to write their circle dialogue.
Yes.
So it's very fun. But it also sort of looks like a hand
with
with like knuckles and that. But then when she's in the room with them, which I wasn't 100% sure that she was in the room with them.
Well, they sent a pod down to her that had a couple minutes
and
worth
it came
of air
up
in it.
in the room.
And then it sucked back up into their big
side,
scene. Yeah.
Basically. And you could see that they were much taller than what you were seeing through like the wall even.
It's like a perspective thing, you think?
Yeah. They were interesting, but not like, I mean, that just opens up a whole other side of like where, what are their bodies like? What do they use? How do they breathe? How do they hear? How do they see? What senses do they not have? What senses do they have? And how do they process them? And like, you could just spiral super quickly.
Well, speaking of her going up in that little room, that's, I wrote down as maybe one of my favorite scenes just because she asks a question in English and he responds with a sentence circle or whatever, and she just knows what it means.
She knows what it means.
Like, she's a genius. It just looks like scribbles around a circle,
Yeah. But she's
so immersed in it.
Yeah. And you can see, so that's sort of like right in the middle, but there are different things that are happening over time. And so you really start picking up these flash forwards, for lack of a better term, the more that she's communicating with them. So you see the scene in the beginning where she's talking to her daughter, or really she's just maybe not necessarily talking to her daughter, but she's just talking about her daughter.
Oh, the voiceover part of it?
Yeah. And then it's like the story of you and how you start or whatever. And then there's nothing.
I used to think it started here, but really it started here.
Yeah. And then there's nothing. You don't get any more flashbacks until she starts interacting with them.
She's having these like headache, like Harry Potter scar tingle moments, kind of.
Which I think is. So then he talks about, Jeremy Renner brings up the theory that when you're immersed in a language, it can actually change the way that you think and your perspective.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, from a very, very basic scientific level, does that surprise me that that's a theory out there? No, because if you're learning a new language, anytime you're learning, you're building new synapses and new neural pathways in your brain. So is that a crazy, outrageous thought? Not really. That makes sense. And you see her starting to like learn more and get more immersed in it. So then she starts dreaming it. Because there's one time.
She sees Jeremy Renner as one of the heptapods. Yeah.
Which is a funny one too. So she's a genius about it, but they've done a good job of showing you without overly telling you this is what's happening, that she's picking up on all of these things. I thought anyways.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that it was real flash forwards until she's at the like Unity ball or whatever and ends up talking to General Shang.
And then you're like, wait, what's happening here?
Yeah, and he's like, I can't believe you called me and said my wife's last words, and this was the phone number that you called me on.
So by that
he
logic,
gets it.
Yeah.
But he says, it's amazing to me how your brain works. So
I have to assume that she's the first human that received said gift.
Yeah, because she was the closest emotionally and like allowed her just self to be the most open to it.
Mm-hmm.
She's the first one to take off her suit and walk up to the glass and all that kind of stuff.
But even if you look at the 12 other sites, I think she was probably the first too.
Yeah. Because we get the impression that the other places were mostly sending more science-based people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess when she calls, the time of it doesn't make any sense though. Because she has to call General Shang to convince him to call off the bombing.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, he has to give her the number in the flash forward.
Yeah.
So she just is seeing a true representation of what will happen in the future. But in that flash forward, it's implied that he broadly has an idea of what her gifts are and that this is needed to happen. But he clearly doesn't have the same ability at that point because he's like, I don't really understand how your brain works.
But at that point, she would have already written her book, right? We see her opening the book.
Yeah.
And so you know that she's written about it at this point. You know that she's shared and explained as much as she possibly could. So then he's
like, I need to give her my number to influence the past to make things happen the way they did.
I think he knows enough to know that, but not enough to impact his own self in the past.
Yeah.
So like when she has the zero-sum conversation.
About Mahjong.
No, when her daughter says, what's that thing when you're compromising? Yeah. And she's like, a compromise. And she's like, no, it's more scientific-y. And she's like, her daughter's, she says, call your dad, or if you want science, call your dad.
Yeah.
And she was walking up the stairs, and this is happening very much intermittently with whatever Louise is doing in the present. And Ian says zero-sum game, and she flips, like it flips, and she's back in the flash forward, and she says zero-sum game. And her daughter's like, oh yeah, that's it.
So it reminds me a little bit, ironically, of Project Hail Mary, where he has amnesia and is remembering there's certain things happening with Rocky and his research that are triggering memories in the past that are kind of related to that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell if he's intentionally slipping back in, like if he knows they're being unlocked and he's purposely going back into those memories. And so it definitely gets to the point where you're wondering if Amy Adams is intentionally tapping into it.
I think she is.
Yeah.
Because specifically with that one, she didn't know the word. She wasn't thinking of the word until Ian said it, and then she went in and said it.
Yeah.
So I forgot how we got onto that, but we were talking about the Chinese general.
Can I just say that she looks distractingly like Pam from The Office?
You can say that, but I never watched The Office, so I can be like, there's a similarity, but it's not distracting.
I just thought of her as Pam the whole time.
I only ever see her as Amy Adams.
She's just Pam. Looks just like Jenna Fisher.
Okay, you're talking about the timeline. Yeah, she's got to call the guy.
It's like a chicken and the egg thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, isn't that always the thing with any kind of time travel thing?
Yes.
But in this case, they're saying it's okay and it doesn't really matter because time is nonlinear.
Right. For the heptapods, especially.
Right. And if you can tap into that, it can change your whole perspective and world, essentially. And it does.
And so that becomes maybe one of the themes is mankind's view of the concept of time too limited when we think of time as linear. I think at one point Rachel was like, well, it'd become blah, blah. And I was like, no, time is linear. Like I said it out loud while we were watching the movie. She's like, well, you can see the future and for them. I'm like, well, but time is linear. I mean, that's a big part of the basis of how we understand physics and stuff like that. So as opposed to being a flat circle. Heard that one as well. Time is a flat circle. In history certainly does repeat itself. Where are we at right now? 80 years? No, 90 years. We're living in America the way it was 90 years ago. So I don't know. I got to the end and I was like, okay, what was I meant to take away from this? Because you're hitting me with this revelation at the very end. Usually a twist is 2/3 of the way in or 3/4 of the way in, and then you get movie dealing with the aftermath of that. But they were like, psych, it was Jeremy Renner the whole time. Okay, bye.
Yeah,
right before the credits.
How did you feel about that?
That makes sense to me. I mean, he clearly likes her, I think, right before, like, you can tell when they're sitting out on the pickup truck and he's like affectionate towards like making sure she's okay whenever they get their concussions and stuff like that. So he's taking a shine to her, and that's fine.
Well, even if it's not romantic, it's definitely going to happen because they're
like a trauma bond situation.
Yeah, they're the only two people who are experiencing this kind of event at the same time in the same way. Like, yeah, definitely a trauma bond thing. But I think so the whole thing about Jeremy Renner that I think is interesting is one, when she's like, I just figured out or I just realized why my husband left me.
Yes.
So you get that whole piece and you're like, okay. So
she knew her daughter was going to die this whole time and then didn't tell him until she was like 7 or something.
Right. And she still like went through with it. But then she has a conversation with Jeremy Renner's character and she's like, would you still, if you knew how it was going to end, would you still do it anyway?
Well, she says, what would you do differently? And he's like, oh, I would speak my mind more, say how I felt more or something like that right before they kiss.
So he's not saying he wouldn't want to know. So it's kind of annoying that he's mad.
Well, sure.
Because she did ask.
Kind of. Yeah, but like not like directly. Hey, I can see the future and I know that that we're going to get married and we're going to, so like, do you want me to tell you how that goes?
Yeah.
You know? I wonder if she was that direct at some point.
It's just interesting. I think that whole concept is just interesting. But yeah,
I mean,
so
I think I have questions. I have questions is maybe strong. I don't know. We just don't know that much about her personality, really. We know that in the future, she's a mom that cares about this kid.
Yeah.
But in the very beginning, we're like, okay, she's almost the kind of college professor that is oblivious to things happening around her.
Or she's just apathetic.
I guess maybe. She really cares about the language
She
stuff.
cares about the language.
She's so excited to talk about Portuguese.
Yeah.
But I was like, where is everyone?
She was also like, where is everybody? Okay, they're not here, whatever. I have stuff to talk about.
And I'm like, do you not have email? And then she comes in the next day and is almost like surprised that there's no one on campus. So she has that little of a life.
She was surprised, or she was just like, yeah, I don't have anything else to do.
I might as well go sit in my office.
If you're thinking that she's a mom who lost her child,
yes,
you're like,
right, exactly.
This totally tracks.
She's dead inside.
Yeah.
She's just given herself over totally to the work.
Yeah. So they did such a good job because you're like, that makes sense.
But then it's in the looking back, I'm like, wait. Well, I mean, she did.
Who is she?
No, she hasn't yet at that point.
Right.
So what kind of person is she going into this? And then Forrest Whitaker comes and he's like, you got to come right now. And she's like, eh. And he's like, okay, then I'm going to leave. And she's like, if you talk to this guy, ask him what this means in Sanskrit. And I'm like, don't understand how that worked.
Okay, so I have a good thought there. She had a condition, and he was like, that's not going to work. And I'm going to leave here in like 2 minutes.
Well, he was just like,
what was the condition?
He was just like, start translating for me off of this.
Oh, right.
And she's like, what? She's like, no, I have to go there. And he's like, no we're going to go ask. Yeah, he's like, I'm already having enough trouble keeping other people out. Which
honestly, super tracks, because if you want to do a good job and the person you're signing up to do a good job for isn't going to let you do what you need to do a good job, you're not going to take the job.
And that's why I want her to say several times when he's like, we need answers. What is this weapon? Why are they here? She want to be like, do you want an answer fast, or do you want a good answer or a fast answer?
Do you want the right answer? Yeah.
Yeah. Because the wrong answer can set you back.
So this is why she says, if you're going to Berkeley, ask him whatever means in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
And she says, he comes back, and I don't remember what he says the guy said. And she says, it means I want more cows or something.
Yes.
He says sacrifice or something, and she says, I need more cows.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this movie called The Interpreter, and it has, I think it's definitely Nicole Kidman, and I think it might be Sean Penn, and she's an interpreter for the UN.
Okay, this is not Lost in Translation with Bill Murray?
No.
Okay.
She's an interpreter for the UN. There's a murder that happens in the UN building, and like there's a guy that solves it. Yeah. So it's a whole thing. But she says, as an interpreter, she says, and I might butcher this line a little bit because it's been a long time, but she says, somebody says something about gone, and she says, if I translated gone as dead, I would be fired. Like, those are not the same thing. It's just like you were saying,
yes,
baby versus infant versus. So it's important that when she says, ask this guy what this Sanskrit word means, that we're working from the same baseline. And if he thinks it means one thing, that's going to skew all of your results.
Yeah.
So I think that's what she's trying to convey to Forrest Whitaker.
She's showing Forrest Whitaker, he looks at language as this A to B black and white thing. He's memorized a lot of stuff.
And there's nuance.
He's not taking, and we talk constantly in my class about context. Right? One of the big phrases this year especially has been, let's make it make sense. Right? So when we're translating a chunk of text from Spanish to English, what you want to do is go word for word and just put those words down in that order. And that's fine. That's a good place to start. And then go back and look at those words. And is that how you would say it in English? Right? Is that how we would put that paragraph together? Right. Because if it's not, then you haven't done anything wrong, but you still have another step to then make of, okay, this is close, right? It's, the man sees her, but the man to her says, there's just some words we need to flip the order of because of the idiosyncrasies. And they all want to put it on Spanish. Oh, well, Spanish is weird. I go, wrong. Absolutely wrong. English is weird. The English is a very borrowed from a piecemeal, borrowed, like breaks its own rules all the time sort
And
of language.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter which one's weird. They are what they are, and you can't change that.
Yeah, and Spanish was there way before English.
You
was.
just-
They're
You
always
have to
wanting
work through the nuances.
Yeah, and it's just it can be hard for an 8th grader
Oh, for sure.
in 40 minutes to grasp when I say things like when you grow up speaking a language, it is much easier to write poetry in that language. Like you feel that's the language of your heart. And so there are people that I speak to in Spanish sometimes who can speak English or can speak some English. But when I make the effort to reach out to them in their native language, you're just going to get a different feel because of their ability to express themselves. And it is a choice to make because my ability to understand how well they're expressing themselves is imperfect.
Right.
But it feels different. When you know more than one language, you understand that it just takes a different amount of energy and effort out of you to communicate in the other for a lengthy period of time or over a serious topic. And there's just something about your heart that like opens up a little bit when you get to finally switch back to like your native tongue. And those aren't the kind of concepts that 8th graders want to hear, right?
But it's like you appreciate when somebody pronounces your name correctly.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
That's an easier connection where, you might be able to make that connection faster. But like, it's good. Honestly, though, it's good that you're having the conversation, even if they are having trouble grasping it, because if they never have exposure to that kind of concept, then.
Yeah, it's the watering the seeds and you don't get to see them grow kind of situation. Maybe that's probably a positive way to look at it because I just feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. There's some kids that are listening. There's always some kids that are listening.
Yeah. Well, and I think more now, the older I get, I think there are also kids that are listening that don't seem like they're listening. And it comes out in different ways too.
Yeah.
Like
I'm sure it's
in
true.
different situations.
I have had kids that I would have sworn in front of a judge, I've never listened to a word I said, that will quote me back to myself later, or at least like closely, like show that that they were kind of listening. I'm like, oh, okay, heard.
I think the big thing that I like about the movie is language is important because there are so many nuances, and it is important how you communicate and the words that you choose to say.
And it should be a unifying experience too.
Yeah.
It should be bringing people together.
Yeah.
Because the heptapods seem to have a specific agenda of wanting to get humanity on the same page.
Yeah.
Because they say, we're going to need your help in 3,000 years because they can see the future because they're heptapods.
Yeah.
And so we should, if Amy Adams can successfully from absolutely nothing learn heptapod language, then there's really no excuse for language being that big of a barrier against like the human condition and like the uniting of like humans as one people.
Yeah. We didn't talk about my favorite line, which is, do you have any guesses?
Trying to think of something like a comedy interlude here or there. The kangaroo, maybe the kangaroo.
It's not that, but it's when it's right after Offer Weapon comes up and she's in the room with the CIA guy and she's talking and she goes, "Why do I have to talk to him?"
Yeah.
Because he's just being ridiculous and he's horrible. And she's, why do I have to talk to him?
But you understand how he got his position in the CIA because of what the CIA as an institution values.
Yeah, of course.
And that's all we have to say about that.
So,
Happy
would you
Memorial
watch
Day.
it again? Did you enjoy it?
I think I would watch it again at least one more time. It's with the perspective thing of like, oh, now that I know about this part of it, then I can like view it differently.
Yeah, what falls into place differently.
Yeah. And I think it would be good to watch on a different screen. Our
we didn't talk
projector has
about
started
that.
to like wash out some stuff. And so we have to turn the brightness way up. And then when that scene where she's in the room with just Costello is like, you can barely see anything because it's so white and the brightness is so high. You can barely see her face and it's just revealing. So there's stuff that I wish. I think there's a certain kind of people who, as they get older, they're like, what's the point of the movie theater? I can watch everything on my TV at home. And I'm getting to the opposite of like, oh, this stuff was meant to be seen in the movie theater.
Yeah,
And
on a giant
I don't
screen
have
with a good light.
I don't have a $10,000, AV setup, but I have a projector. And so like, I never have been a 4K, like 8K. Oh, I'm snobby about how I'm seeing this. I mean, I've watched how many movies on VHS over the years. I'm starting to recognize some of the benefits of it.
I think it's like there's an appreciation too,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, that makes sense. This was definitely one we had to turn up the brightness on. Also, just because we were in this room, so like the viewing angles and everything were a little different. But it is so dark, and that's one thing that they do in the movie. Everything with the heptapods is a darker, greener, grayer
Shadowy.
lens, and everything in the flash forward with her daughter is a brighter,
Yes.
lighter.
It's all happening like right at noon.
Yeah. So which I always love the way they do that. How did Rachel like this because of the time stuff?
So Rachel's seen this movie before.
Okay.
And let me know there was times there was nonlinearity, but she doesn't like it. The time travel isn't in and of itself doesn't bother Rachel. It's when there is a story and we chop it up and tell that story in a different
Which
order.
is definitely what's happening
Which
here.
is sort of what's happening. She didn't express frustration about it though.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
don't know
definitely
why.
ask about that. Because I know that annoys her sometimes.
Yeah, you'll have to check in with Rachel on that. I think she says that she liked it. Maybe she's even watched it a couple of times. Though for Rachel, that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, you just never know.
Yeah.
She watches this movie she doesn't like 3 times, maybe. Who knows?
Less selective.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will watch it again, probably in another
Yeah.
year or something. I wouldn't want to watch it too often, but it's one to go back to and rewatch. I just enjoy it.
I think I'd like to at least do Interstellar and then be able to kind of compare Project Hail Mary, Interstellar, and this. Project Hail Mary has stuff of, how Rocky is designed and voiced and stuff.
A lot of the communication things that I was
Yes.
connecting to Project Hail Mary as well.
I was like, Ryan Gosling figured this out so fast, dude.
He was way faster.
Just go
than
numbers. We got to get numbers. Assume that they're echolocating, and we'll get this figured out.
It's done. Yeah, they did that really fun. And I'm kind of wondering how much, like, not that you'll ever know, but was there any inspiration in the short story or from the movie from Andy Weir's perspective as he's writing Project Hail Mary for that language
Right.
piece? And then also, like, how much is actually different when you're inventing a language or coming up with, because they invent languages for movies and people in movies. They
Yeah.
like come up with a whole language.
I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien of Lord of the Rings guy, he wrote Lord of the Rings not because it was bursting with some story to tell. He was a linguist. He was a language professor, like an Old Norse professor at Cambridge, I think. And it was like, I came up with these 3 sick languages. I guess I could like package some kind of story around them. We'll call this one elves, this one dwarves, and then it sort of like developed from there, right? The languages, because he invents 2 different Elvish, like High Elvish and Low Elvish and Dwarvish, and symbols and everything for all of them.
So how much of that is like universal in the way that you would develop a language? Like, is it always the same?
I think that there are themes. There's like what we call families of languages, right? Your Norse, like Norwegian and Swedish. Okay, I could be wrong. I think it's Norwegian and Swedish have stuff in common, but then like Finnish is way different for some reason. There's like a few outlier languages, like it's maybe Finnish and then like Hungarian and Catalan. Is it Catalan or is it Basque? I think it's Basque, which is in the northern part of Spain, that don't seem to be connected to anything else. Then you got your Romance languages, which are Latin in root, and your like your Slavic languages, which are Cyrillic, like more so closely associated to Russian, but like where did that start? And eventually get back to like the Tower of Babel, and now it's like religious, stuff going on. So, and then there's obviously your East Asian like pictographic, or what, I don't know exactly the terminology for like the symbols that they use instead of like our alphabet. So, but you can usually figure out every language has pronouns and articles and
nouns.
So the concept of the vibe-based circles, like the seismology or whatever it is like, well, that's unique. And so I wonder if like, do you feel pressure to come up, if it's an alien, with a whole new thing?
I always, like when she says you have to know where she sort of says you have to know where your sentence is ending as you start it. Like that's how, because they do the circle and they have to have, everything has to fit in the circle. And I always relate that to like if you're making a sign and you count how many letters there are and you find the center letter,
right,
and you put that on the center of your banner or your sign or whatever, and then you go out from there.
I can show you many posters where kids just they're like, I'm going to start writing big on the far left and we'll see where it goes. And then it's, we're tiny. Squeezing it in on the right side. Yeah.
So that's the thing that my brain thinks when she's talking about that too. It's the closest relation I can get to it. But Lord knows I would say way less sentences if I had to know where my sentence was ending before I could start it.
Oh, right. Yeah. And we talk about that in Spanish. You've seen upside down question marks and exclamation marks, and kids are like, what's the point of that? Why do we do that? And like, have you ever been reading out loud and you realize this was supposed to be, there's an exclamation mark here and I should have been yelling more, or I should have been inflecting it differently, or you got to make it sound questiony at the end, and you only do it for the last like 2 words and they go, oh, yeah. And so it's like, it's nice to know that it's going to be an exclamation or a question earlier on. Yeah. And you can make parts of it. You can have a sentence with a comma in it and then put the upside down question mark.
Yeah.
So it's statement, but the question follows like after it. And kids are like, okay, like, I guess that's useful.
That's helpful.
Like, begrudging acknowledgement.
It's definitely when you say, if you've been reading out loud, because, you're reading out loud and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, shoot, I sound like an idiot because I didn't put a question inflection. Yeah.
To the extent that kids care about sounding like an idiot when reading out loud. Yeah. But that's a whole nother series of digressions about the current state of American public education. So.
Let us know if you liked this movie, if you didn't like this movie, and
if you knew that your kid was going to die of cancer as a teenager, would you tell Jeremy Renner? Let us know.
Would you marry him to begin with?
But you see it, so you know it's going to happen, so you just got to do it, right?
Yeah.
But then at what age would you tell Jeremy Renner? The kid talks kind of weird, right? Daddy doesn't look at me the same anymore. Who says that? What 7-year-old says that?
I don't know. You have to imagine that this is a kid who's experiencing something that not any other 7-year-old is experiencing.
Mom can see the future.
Yeah. And she's told him, and now instead of looking at his daughter like that's his daughter, I'm sure he's looking at her like
a dog.
Are you even actually my daughter? Like,
yeah.
If this was all predetermined, how much choice did I have anyways?
Well, that's Calvinism versus Arminianism at its finest. Those are Protestant Christian theological arguments. It doesn't matter.
I thought you were talking about the comic strip.
I love Calvin and Hobbes. I love Calvin and Hobbes. It's so good. Talk about philosophy. For real. Yeah. He's like a philosopher, Bill Waterston. He's so great. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys on social. If you could ideally actually let us know from the future what's going to happen, that would be great. We'd love for you to be going back in time to do that for us. Or teach us how to express ourselves with our hands.
And using very specific language.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Have a lovely day.
Bye.